Wanted to jump on live stream and do something with you guys tonight. I think I've mentioned before that our house is packed up and most of my art stuff is not accessible for me. So we've been trying to sell our house for a year, and it's been quite the roller coaster ride. So sorry to keep bringing it up, but that is why my studio is at the bare bones. Why I have very little access to anything that I need, and so I'm having to kind of get small amounts of things that I have in storage if I want to keep working. So that's what I'm doing tonight. I got some shellac flakes and I got some denatured alcohol and managed to pull one of my mason jars out of storage, and I'm going to be making some shellac tonight. And then, because shellac takes at least 24 hours to fully dissolve so that you can use it, I'm going to be working on some shellac pieces later in the week. So I'll probably be live streaming some of that as well. So stay tuned in the next few days. But, so this is what I've got. These are shellac flakes. Shellac comes from a beetle. It's like beetle excretions, but it's a natural kind of resin that's used mostly in woodworking. Shellac is mostly a woodworking thing, but encaustic artists love it because you can get really cool effects with colored shellac and burned on your wax. You get really awesome cells and stuff. If you are not familiar with encaustic art, if you're tuning in and you don't know what encaustic art is, put it in the comments. I would love to answer any questions about encaustic art and how shellac kind of works within it. I unfortunately do not have any demos for you or anything, but I will in the next couple of days once my shellac is ready. So, the solution of denatured alcohol to shellac flakes, there's a specific ratio that is used. They call it a cut. So sorry, my throat is like really dry tonight, so I'm trying to be coherent here. So shellac has a certain amount of alcohol and a certain amount of shellac. I'm not sure what the ratio is when you buy it in the store, but I think it's a 1 pound cut, which means that there is a pound of shellac for every gallon of alcohol. That's essentially the breakdown of how the ratios work. Now, I have not had any luck with store-bought shellac in the past. Well, very little luck with store-bought shellac in the past. It just, the ratio of the shellac is not, hey, oh, I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish. I don't know what they said. Sorry. The ratio of shellac in store-bought shellac is really low. It's like a 1 pound cut. And through some experimentation that I did, which I actually have videos of on my channel if you're interested in shellac, I discovered that I really like the higher percentages of shellac. You get much better burns, especially when it's fresh. When you've just made it like within within a month. You get really awesome burns with it. So I prefer to have 3 pound cut shellac, which is why I make all my own shellac now. I don't buy store-bought shellac anymore. And normally when I do that, I break down the formula of a 3 pound. So 3 pounds of shellac to a gallon of alcohol. I'm not ever going to make that much shellac. It's ridiculous. Hi, Kendrick. Thanks for tuning in. Let me know if you have any questions about encaustic art. I'm making shellac tonight, but I will be using it in my art in a few days once it's dissolved. So I have to break the formula down because I'm not going to make 1.5 gallons of shellac. I'll never use it. It's only good for a couple of months before it starts to break down. So I have to really condense it, break down the formula to make like maybe 3/4 of a cup. So what I do is I have a 1/2 cup of denatured alcohol and 1.5 ounces of shellac flakes. And normally I measure it out, but again, all of my stuff is in storage, so I'm not going to measure it this time. I'm going to just, oh, somebody's saying Trump, Trump, Trump in the, that's fine. If you want to, I don't get political on my art channel. This is just for art. So I'm measuring out about a 1/2 cup. Well, I'm not really measuring it. I'm just pouring it out. About a 1/2 cup of denatured alcohol into my mason jar here. Now, normally when I do this, I'm very, like, I'm measuring it really well. Like, I'm pretty anal about it. But I've made it enough that I can get a hey all around, Adeline. I'm doing well. How are you? I'm making shellac, having fun. So normally I measure it really well, but I've made it enough that I know about the amounts that I need. And if you're off a little bit, it's really not that big of a deal. So that's about a half a cup of denatured alcohol. Now I'm going to add about an ounce and a half of shellac flakes. And I know I used these cups before, and it's almost all the way to the top is an ounce and a half. Oh, good. I'm glad you're doing well. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions about encaustic art, let me know. I would love to answer those questions. All right, so this is probably pretty close to an ounce and a half of shellac flakes in this cup. I am making shellac. I use shellac in my encaustic art. A few more flakes, I think. It's mostly used in woodworking, but when you paint it onto encaustic wax, you get and you burn it with a blowtorch, you get really cool cellular like effects. It's kind of hard to explain if you've never seen it, and I wish that I had a painting that I could show you guys of shellac. I do on my channel. I have a whole playlist of shellac burns. So if you're interested in that, you can go check it out. They're really cool. One of the most popular things that encaustic artists do for a reason, because they're awesome. But what I was saying in the beginning is that store-bought shellac doesn't have a high enough concentration of shellac to get really good burns in encaustic art. So I make my own, which is what I'm doing here. So half a cup of denatured alcohol, about an ounce and a half of shellac flakes. And you're just going to add them together. And now I'm going to put the lid on. And you just... The shaking is optional. The shellac flakes will eventually completely dissolve in the alcohol. But shaking it does kind of speed up the process. Because otherwise they start to get sticky and they stick to the bottom, and then it can take maybe 48 hours instead of 24 hours to completely dissolve. You know, not a huge deal unless you're in like a big hurry. Does anybody have any questions about shellac or encaustic art? I'd love to answer them. Hopefully I'm not talking too fast. Now these are very pale shellac flakes. Shellac flakes actually come in a variety of different colors. You can get super dark amber, you could get kind of a mid-range red or orange, or you can get this really pale kind of yellow. Now I like to get as pale as I possibly can find shellac flakes, because that allows you to mix pigments into your shellac to get different colors. The darker your shellac is, the more limited you are in the colors that you can kind of add into your shellac and then onto your paintings. So I really like to use, because then if you use a pale shellac like this, you can get a really good white. It's hard to get a good white in shellac for your paintings, but if you use pale shellac flakes, you can get pretty good whites most of the time, especially if you're using dry pigment. There's really two ways to color your shellac once it's dissolved and you're about to use it in your paintings. You can use some dry pigments. I get mine from Earth Pigments. Or you can use alcohol ink. The alcohol ink works really well because shellac is alcohol based. So don't try to use like India ink or something that's water based, because it won't mix into the alcohol. It'll just clump up, and I actually experimented with that because I wanted to see what it did, and it didn't do anything. It just clumped up on my brush as I was trying to stir it into the shellac. It was gross. So don't do that. Anyway, so you can see the alcohol is getting yellow, a yellowish tint. The flakes are starting to dissolve. The smaller they are, the faster they dissolve. So if you want them to dissolve really fast, you can grind them up like in a coffee grinder or something, and they'll dissolve pretty fast. These are actually dissolving pretty fast. I'm kind of impressed. So, tomorrow night, if I'm lucky, but maybe possibly the following night, I will have some dissolved, ready to go shellac that I can pour into small amounts into these cups and pigment them with different dry pigments or alcohol inks to use in my paintings. And then I will have a cool demo to show you guys. I can lift it up and show you. Otherwise, if you're interested in shellac burns on encaustic wax, you can look at my playlist. I have a shellac burn playlist. If you're interested in encaustic art at all, which is painting with wax, I encourage you to subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be doing a lot of live streams in the next few months, sharing some of my pieces, talking about the process, working on paintings in my studio. Yeah, so if you guys have any questions, pop them into the comments. I hope you'll subscribe and give me some comments on some of the videos if you like encaustic art. And that's it. My shellac will be, as soon as it's dissolved, it'll be ready to go. So thanks for tuning in.